It's not the best time of year to be anywhere. I was in Bangor, Maine, and we were inside the Cross Center, which is basically their civic center. And we had to have,
We're live.
we're live now. All right, so we'll go ahead and call to order this special meeting of the Killingley Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Commission. And we'd like to thank everyone for taking the time out of their summer schedules to get back here for a second week in a row. It's very much appreciated. So Karina, could we have a roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Rodney Galton?
Here.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know who's here. Renee Legault is,
Yeah, I'm here.
He's here
Yes.
remotely.
he is here, okay. And Karina Torrey is here, and
Amy
Sterling is active as well.
Yep.
Yep, you'll be
she'll
seating
be-
both alternates
yes.
for tonight.
Okay.
All right, so in the absence of both Paul Archer with notification and Chris McDonald, both of our alternates will be seated as full voting members this evening. All right, citizens' participation, comments could be emailed on the things that are coming up. So that would be the appropriate way to approach that this evening, I believe.
Yep, yeah, we had no written comments related to anything tonight.
Because it is specific to this agenda.
For-
Being a special meeting.
Yep.
This is the only really the only thing at all that we can discuss. Okay, we do have a couple of items of correspondence. Do you want to do those first? Do we have a motion to,
I'll make a motion to move the correspondence to first.
all right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded to move the two items of correspondence to the beginning of the meeting. All in favor? And actually, we'll need a roll call because of, Rainey, you're remote tonight, but we don't have a picture, not like when we see Karina.
Oh, sorry. I could put on my camera, but you would just see my incredibly nerdy office. And
Rodney Galton,
Yes.
Amy Sterling. Yes. Renee Legault,
yes.
Karina Torrey, yes. Oh, Sandy Eggers.
Yes. Okay, then we'll start with the first item. Jonathan, if you want to fill us in, there's two of them, both from Killingley Engineering.
Yep, and
First one's 761 Bailey Hill.
we have the engineer Norm here from Killingley Engineering as well. You guys at the last meeting had asked for some level of certification with the original ask for a non-jurisdictional ruling
Yep.
for these two subdivisions. The soil scientists did go out and checked both properties, just in general, but we'll focus on 761 Bailey Hill. There were wetlands that were found within 200 feet of the original proposed septic area on one of the lots. The plan has been modified, so now all activity is outside of the 200-foot area, and it is off-site from there. So it would still, in my mind, qualify. I have all the plans. I can pull them up if you guys want. They're in your packet as well. We have them right here.
All right, you want to come up? Give us your name and address for the record, Norm.
Norm Tebow, Killingley Engineering Associates, thank you.
Okay.
Right, so we did send Joe Thoreau out there. He found wetlands on the, I guess this is the western side of the property off there. These are steep slopes that go here. The wetlands are not even located at the toe of the slope. They're just breaking out of the steep slope.
Norm, can you face it for the camera
Yes.
Which way?
That makes
way?
and turn on the mic?
And turn on the mic.
Turn on,
Okay.
turn on the mic.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Randy, can you see it all now?
No,
I can hear. I can't see it, but that's okay.
I will
Continue.
pull it up for him shortly.
Okay, so the yellow line here you see on the plans is the 200-foot upland review area. We did happen to have some test holes in this area over here, so we slid the septic system uphill slightly to get out of the regulated area completely. The other 200-foot does not even come onto the property. There are wetlands to the west that are further back on the property. So we are not, and there is a stone wall between our property and the slopes as well. Like as I said, no activity. We just got that regulated area that kind of comes up the slope a little bit on sort of like the northwestern side of the property.
I don't have a problem with it as in agent authorization.
No.
It meets all the requirements.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially them sliding the septic outside of the 200 foot. I think it makes sense. Yep. Yep.
You guys have anything on it? I mean, it's
No, it's pretty cut and dry.
totally out of it. Well, hearing that,
So-
do we have a,
So just to be clear, this wouldn't be for agent, this is for non-jurisdictional, right? Because
Okay.
all activities outside of the 200 feet.
okay. We have a motion for jurisdictional ruling then.
I will make a motion for non-jurisdictional.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to allow the proposed two-lot subdivision at 761 Bailey Hill Road, since it clearly has all of its activity without, outside of the 200-foot buffer. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Next one would be your Zadora Heights application. And this time, we'll have it ready for you, Rainey.
1 second. So this one went through a similar process. However, the soil scientists found no regulated areas within 200 feet of the proposed subdivision. So I'm just gonna pull up here. That letter is part of your packet. And again, we have Norm here, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. But there, being that there's no regulated activity,
Activity at all.
it would be a non-jurisdictional ruling, would be the suggestion from staff.
Rainey, you on board with that as well?
Yeah, I mean, if there's nothing even close.
And since you're acting as a full member tonight, will there be a motion?
Yeah, motion to, what is it, non-jurisdictional
Yep.
ruling?
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded to issue a non-jurisdictional ruling for 169 Rock Avenue, a proposed six-lot subdivision, since there is no activity whatsoever within the 200 feet regulated area. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Once again, oh, did he say that when someone's remote, do we need, if it's unanimous, do we need to?
If it's unanimous, if you believe it's going to be unanimous,
Okay.
you don't need a roll call vote. But if, as soon as you hear somebody maybe say no, maybe just clarify it with a
Yep.
roll call.
Yep. So Rainey, you're comfortable with the affirmative vote?
Yes, aye.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, now we'll move on to our main objective this evening, unfinished business, application 26-1627 of CJJ Adventure LLC, proposed three-lot subdivision with septic wells and associated site work within the 200-foot upland review area. And that's 647 Putnam Pike. Okay, you guys want to?
Yes, there we go. Thank you so much for seeing us this evening. We greatly appreciate it. I know everyone's been very busy with a couple other challenging projects, and we really appreciate you having this meeting to discuss this with us. This is Jeremy Whitland. He's kind of the, I guess, project manager associated with this project. We have Quinn Stevenson here, who I'd say is the general contractor, maybe?
Yeah, general gardener.
Yep. All right, Daniel. Get started.
All right.
Just let me know if you want anything else.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
Do we have anything we can get up there that Randy can see?
Yep, so Rainey can see what you're seeing on the screen right now. I'm sharing it
Yep.
to him. So I'm focusing in currently on sheet number 3, which I believe Dan's going to go through some of the updates that were made since last week's meeting.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So yeah, here's sheet 3 of the updated plan set. This is dated August 5th. We made a couple changes as requested by the commission. I added the foundation drains in for the buildings. We added a small proposed contour on the backside just to make that more understandable. I also zoomed everything in, so instead of being a 40 scale, which was difficult to read, we're at 30 scale. Hopefully it's a little bit easier for everyone to understand. I also submitted a nitrogen calculation for the proposed septic systems. That's kind of the main pollutant of concern for this project, and I would say for most projects with a septic system near wetlands. The most of the pollutants that come out of sewage can be filtered by the soil with the exception of nitrogen. And so I've submitted a calculation that demonstrates that the nitrogen going out of the septic system in the soil will be diluted by all the other water coming down the drainage area. The target is 10 milligrams per liter, which is considered safe to drink. And so by my calculations, I estimate that we would be about 2 milligrams per liter coming into the septic system. It's coming into the wetlands on the second side, the west side, sorry. And so hopefully, you know, I can demonstrate that there's not going to be any immediate or deleterious effects to wetlands as a result of this proposed construction. We are filling some wetlands due to the driveway. However, we're cleaning up another large portion of the site to mitigate that. One of the other concerns I heard voiced, which was very legitimate, is, you know, what do we do down the road to protect the wetlands? 10 years down the road, I've seen it plenty of times. Someone buys this, they don't understand the wetlands, and they put in a garage, a shed, a swing set. The lawn starts to creep in, which again, we don't want that to happen. And so right now, I'm proposing a permanent barrier behind the houses along the edge of the wetlands of 3-foot boulders spaced about every 10 to 15 feet to really kind of have a permanent demarcation of those wetlands. And if the commission wanted, we could do it on the other side as well. Again, whatever would satisfy the commission in terms of making a firm boundary there, whether it's boulders, a split rail fence. We talked about arborvitaes, but those are kind of easy to take down if you wanted to. I also moved the wells as far as I could from the wetlands. We have at least 20 feet from the 2 proposed wells to the wetlands. I think that's most of the changes that I made since last week. I would be happy to answer any questions.
To protect.
Turn your mic
Oh,
on.
sorry. For the, in the interest of the wetlands over time and change of ownership, the garage example you offered, is there, is it possible to put a notation on the plan that's at the town hall?
Absolutely, yeah.
That
No,
has to be pulled to be seen?
Yeah, no, I'm very happy to do that. That's a great suggestion, yep.
Thank you.
Well, personally, I will give you the fact that I do like the idea of a visual barrier. I'm not convinced that I like the whole thing much better, but I do think that's a step in the right direction.
Thank you.
Anyone else's opinion?
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I think putting the boulders there is a very good idea, but I still believe,
One house.
I still believe they're creating their own hardship here.
Yep.
I don't think you meet most of our requirements for separation distances. So, that's what I'm struggling with.
I am too still. I'll be honest with you.
Sure.
I can see you configuring it to get one house in there, possibly, maybe even a duplex. But the 2 of them, it just makes everything so much more difficult with our setbacks and requirements.
Yes.
But I really do like the visual separation. I think that's a big, big help.
Okay, great. Yeah, I know the, so the wetland regulations do have a recommended buffer of 100 feet between septic systems and wetlands. It does state, though, that on a case-by-case basis, if you do not believe it will have a significant impact, as I understand it, you can choose to waive or not enforce those regulations.
I think typically when we don't enforce that and we end up waiving it and working with it, it's when it's a lot of record.
Okay,
And this is not.
understood.
And I think that's one of the biggest problems that most of us have, It's one thing if there was something already existing. All you're doing is creating 2 lots,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Right,
makes a
and I
big
think
difference.
going back to the comments about, even if this was just one duplex, I think that you might be able to meet some of these setbacks, if this was downsized to 1 lot even, which I understand for the amount of crossing and the amount of work that's going to have to be done here might not satisfy the goals of the proposed project, for the applicant or whatever, but from a wetlands perspective, it could be done.
So I actually don't believe that's the case. I don't think even with one single family house, we would be close to meeting that 100-foot buffer. The upland that we
Then why
have,
are we creating a lot?
the upland that we have is about less than 200 feet wide. And so even one house would be significantly over that buffer. I'd also like to note, when the commission first started looking at this, I don't think there was a vote to have it be a significant activity or hold a public hearing. And so I would just like to note that for the record, as we're talking about, again, significant impacts.
The lot is primarily wetlands. There is significant impact just by that alone. I
That's
mean,
why there was not already a house lot there, and why there wasn't a
You know.
prior subdivision.
So as Chairwoman Eggers had said, why are we even doing 1 then? We're not coming close with, you're saying we're not gonna come close even if you went with only 1. So it begs
why
the
would we do
question,
2?
why are we doing it?
Right. That would,
I mean, not to sound like a jerk or anything,
No,
but
no.
not every lot, not every piece of land is actually fit to be developed. And this may be one of those.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I will echo those thoughts. If you don't believe you can even get one building to work with our setbacks, then why are we even showing 2 here? And I guess that's what I'm struggling with, right?
Yeah.
So, about developing the property, it was in the same, I don't know if the commission knows about the history of this property. But this property was originally farmland, and then eventually there was a developer or builder back, I think it was around in the 60s when this house was built there. And it had been in the same family's generation. It was for 2 generations. But unfortunately, the gentleman who owned the house originally went into a nursing facility or an assisted living facility, and the house effectively was abandoned. And there was squatters living on there. And this site itself is why it wasn't developed. It was just in family for multi-generational. But when CJJ Adventure acquired the property, just the condition that it was, I mean, the house literally there was water coming in, penetrating, the roof was done. It was literally trash. It was pretty much a squatter's haven. And the amount of garbage and everything else that was on the property, it's significant. We took out about 30 dumpsters worth of trash and debris, and there still is on this property, because it is 30 acres, it's contiguous with another 31 acres on Putnam side, contiguous property separated by the town line. The whole thing going even further back into the property still has a lot of trash on there. So the intention is, we've cleaned up a lot of that trash in the front. We already taken out like 100 tires of all sizes, tractor tires, car tires, things like that. So over the last 3 years of ownership, that's what we've been doing for this time, before even coming to this point. I remember we came a couple of years ago to talk with zoning and everything about what do we want to do with this property and kind of the long-term plan on the management of the property, because nobody really wanted to deal with this property because it was known to the state police as being a really bad area of police calls and things like that. So the mismanagement of this property has been ongoing for a couple of decades. And so that's where I looked at the opportunity, willing to, CJA was willing to do the hard work to clean it up, to even bring it to this point, so we even have the opportunity to look at building on this land. One thing the commission should note as well is that most of this land, and I know we talked about it in previous meetings, most of this land, all in the front for the first couple of 100 feet is all wetlands. And towards Wheaton's Pond in the back of the property is where there's more dry land and things like that, where we wouldn't encounter it until we get to Wheaton's Pond. But we still have to cross wetlands to even get to the back of that property.
But at
I
least
think
you
that's
have
on
some,
page-
at least you have some property there that is much more developable.
Correct. It's just getting through it and,
Yeah, so there's a little bit of upland area here around the existing house.
yeah.
Here's the wetland shown in blue. I'm sure when they put the driveway in originally, they filled a bunch of wetlands. In terms of frontage, I couldn't find a way to make that idea work. And so truly to build anything here, I think this little knoll is the only place to try and add some housing.
And I forget how many miles it is, but to get the frontage on this part of the back of the lot, a public road would be needed, or I think we even looked at a prior design for a cul-de-sac and doing something much larger to the property. I think that was submitted as well to do like a cul-de-sac coming in, make this into a public road, cul-de-sac, and then just building all back here, but just much more intensive development of the property. And so that's why we looked at, okay, what is, to still meet the zoning requirements and the frontage requirements, what area are we able to be able to work with and try to do the least amount of impact? And that's also why we looked at from coming in off of the guardrails from the front of the property to can we just get like 2 straight driveways on there and something like that? But since it has quite a bit, the topography has such quite a dip, and we don't meet the sight lines to come in, because that was originally like the easiest way instead of curving through the wetlands. But we run into an issue with DOT for the sight line on the property to be able to have, I think it's 500 feet, I think, of sight, so that when somebody's pulling out of the driveway, they wouldn't be T-boned by a car coming in from, I think it was a Westview, coming in from there. So that was the only safest way you could think, just because the existing driveway, for safety, they have clear line of sight to be able to get out of that driveway from there, and have a little bit more because that would be widened. I think it's 12 feet, I think, right now, the existing.
Probably 10.
Or 10 feet private driveway, because you can only get 1 car anyways there.
Yeah, no, we looked at many different alternates before submitting this proposal, and this is the only thing I think that would even come close to working. I understand the commission has some concerns. It's a tight spot. Unfortunately, most of the good land is gone, and projects that I work on now have a tremendous amount of wetlands, or ledge, or giant slopes. I fully admit that it's tight, but I think our plan is pretty good to try and really state and prove that there's not a significant impact to any wetlands.
All right, Rainey,
looked at-
Rainey's been listening. I know that, like I said, I'm not thrilled, but I'm sure you have some input too. I know you've been out there with us when we were there.
Yeah, I understand that this doesn't look like an easy lot to work with any way you cut it up, which unfortunately may just be the way it is. I am seeing the grading, the sloping that's present on the lot for like that back west of the existing residence kind of proposal that I said might be better. There's a larger area of upland over there, a smaller crossing. But again, if that's not doable for a number of reasons, and we are reviewing what is in front of us right now as a commission, and it is these 2 duplexes nestled in this tiny little island of upland, I still think that regardless of relative options on this lot, is asking a lot for, how much massaging of the setbacks and everything that it's asking us to waive you know, for the sake of the project.
All right, so
Person.
we've got your opinion, got mine, I bet you're ready to jump in,
So,
Rodney.
you said you had met with planning and zoning regarding this property, right?
Yeah, we're currently
3
going
years
through
ago.
the commission meetings, yep.
Okay.
Originally, 3 years ago,
When we
2.5 years
discussed-
ago, with Jonathan and a few other people.
Yeah, I can go through that a little bit. So the property was severely distressed at the time. We were dealing actually with an abutting property or close to it across the road with other issues in terms of enforcement. Around that time, we became aware of the squatter position and started speaking with a local real estate agent who was in the process of trying to address the state of the property, working with, I believe there was a life lease or something along those lines with the property owner, but historic neglect with the property. There was an in-ground pool, for instance, that I think was completely filled with not appropriate things for fill. There was a lot of items, and I definitely agree that the property is in a much better state since the applicant has taken possession of it. I think where the commission is kind of circling around is there an inherent right for a subdivision as it relates to this? And that's really up to each board and commission as they look at the application. I know why the applicant's engineer is kind of referencing the prudent and feasible end of it, the not having the public hearing. Our regulations are based off an older state model, but they are those that do cover it both in the case where if you have what you believe is a significant impact, then you should hold a public hearing. That's on there. However, it does also conflict with the regulations, model regulations from the state that say commissions aren't supposed to hold public hearings. So some commissions hold them all the time. This commission historically does not. But it is a common item under, I believe, standard criteria right prior to that in the section 10 to consider impacts, whether they're short-term, long-term, and whether all options have been looked at. So I think and correct me if I'm wrong, the commission is going towards is just because an upland exists doesn't mean it should be developed, but that is fully up to the commission, to be clear. So as far as the buffers, the applicant is correct that you can waive those, but you should do so how you guys deem it. I think a common example would be like Alexander's Lake, a historically developed area where cottages exist. There's lots of record. And almost all activity is within that review area. But it is one item that did stand out, at least in terms of the application. There's a 1-to-1 perspective, at least, or actually a little bit greater than that in terms of restoration, proposed restoration. Looking at the slopes of that area that's being proposed, let me see if I can get to it. Looking at some of these slopes and based off the description, I have not seen that area with the illicit fill. But looking at some of those slopes, I wouldn't be surprised if historically it might have been a wet area or a wetland, that it was just a low spot and things were pushed into it. So in terms of whether or not that area could easily adapt, removing of that fill and getting back to those underlying soils, I'm not sure if there was any testing in that area, but in terms of being able to bounce back or reestablish, I do feel more confident in that possibility in that area. But there's also bonding. That's an item that we've discussed on other applications, and it's also in your regulations you require for covering of restoration projects, typically like a 2-year type thing with check-ins. So to everyone's point, yeah, you have the ability to waive. That is up to the commission, but it is not automatic. So that is up to you guys. But yes, we did meet. We went through potential opportunities based off the acreage. We also identified that area with the endangered species database near the Wheaton Pond area, and also kind of the conflicting zoning designations between the town of Killingly and the town of Putnam. I believe it's industrial or something along those lines over.
It abuts the industrial.
Okay, so like, there's kind of, not necessarily a plan regionally
Do you have
in
Do
that.
you have any recollection, Jonathan, on if they were led to believe that this would be a good starting point on that little mound, or was their general intent to go
I
more to the back?
I don't recall. I think a lot of our conversation related to as it went towards the back, but the topography also becomes an issue. And then when you start to push into that area with the potential species, and I think that was a focus point on your application. I tried to carefully include all items for this application. So that does include some environmental studies and reports from, I think Burns Environmental went through the property and provided a nice letter or report, and then also the original report from Joe Thoreau, the soil scientist. So, but it is not uncommon for applicants to come in and talk about a property, particularly from a dimensional standard, right? From a zoning standpoint, right? It meets the setbacks, the proposals, the lot sizes are appropriate. Killingly's regulations don't currently opine to developable versus undevelopable land. When we look at minimum lot size, they don't allow you to count, if this was a flag lot, the flag part as part of your acreage. But these are dimensionally correct. As far as frontage, they're on the safety end, right? The state side for sightline, that's one thing. But rear lots are technically possible. It's just double the acreage in the rural development zone. So it doesn't. Each property doesn't have to have frontage in this zone, but they have to have access. Typically, a 50-foot wide easement could go down the existing driveway if that was the proposal in the back. But those lots would be much larger and might not be what the applicant's looking for. I'm not sure.
So basically, on paper, you can cut this up and make it fit.
My opinion is, if we've been through so many changes and still have concerns about the houses fitting and the wetlands being impacted now or in the future, why don't we just not do this? I just reject the plan.
I'm curious, at any point did you discuss variances with zoning regarding, reduced setbacks or reduced frontage or anything along those lines?
That's tough from a subdivision standpoint because a variance in Connecticut is typically something that is denied, at least again on paper.
Yep.
Very commonly, zoning boards do grant variances. Just looking at it from that standpoint, and obviously this is somewhat related to what we're talking about, but a little outside. It's the developable area, like if you're looking in that front setback area, which is a common one for the rural development zone, it appears to be mainly all wetlands in there.
I don't think
except for
that
maybe to the right
would
of
help
the
much,
driveway,
do you?
there
If
might
you
be a
look at it,
spot.
Rodney?
We
Excuse
did.
me,
I don't know.
we want to hear them talking.
I'm not sure that any of that would matter. I'm just curious. I'm just curious whether or not it was brought up as an option so they could make better use of the land in the back.
Back. Because I don't think on this little knoll,
I don't think it makes a
it would
difference
make any
there,
difference
no.
at all. You have one tiny little island there,
Right.
regardless of what you had them change for you.
Yes.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So what percentage, you guys talk about the ratio of upland soils versus wetland soils. What's your ideal ratio of a parcel? Say it's a little bit more on the tighter side, but what's your limit on ratio of upland soils versus wetland soils on any particular lot?
I don't think we
I don't
have a
think we have-
ratio, it's just a matter of making a good faith effort trying to meet our setback requirements, right? And what I'm seeing here is, I don't see,
Typically, when we see something like this, when we're trying to balance anything and say, well, at least it's a ratio or this or that, it's already a lot of record. None of this is. None of this exists, except conceptually.
So I know we talked about so does the commission feel that if these two buildings were combined into one building, but of a larger size, would that make a difference? Or is it just the two
I don't think I would go,
buildings?
I don't think personally that I would go with if you were looking at a 4-unit,
Mhm.
one 4-unit building, I don't think I would. Everyone's gonna have their own opinion.
Yeah.
I still probably could swallow, I could swallow a single house and maybe a duplex, but not a,
Even or even if it wasn't for the ground cover for the footprint of the building, but if it was, let's say, because on the conceptual drawings on here, some of the floor plans was just like a 2-story duplex, like split level, kitchen, living room, and like a bathroom on the first floor and bedrooms, living
Yep.
quarters on the second floor. Would it make a difference for this plan if it was a 3-level and it was multi, but then it runs into the same situation with
I still think it's
zoning?
just too intense on that one little spot personally.
And again, yeah,
Doesn't mean I'm right.
we did look
my
at trying to
opinion.
build something here to the north and the west of the existing house.
So-
And I couldn't find a way to make the frontage work. We even tried to build here,
A
and I
tiny
said,
one.
yeah, there's no way we can fit something in that corner either.
We-
Most of the frontage is down here by that hillside that we're
Did-
proposing to develop.
Did you guys look at like a cluster or conservation subdivision where you would show, and I'm going to bring up one of your alternatives.
We did discuss about doing a cluster development. The difference with it is that unfortunately, this site, all the wetlands are literally up in the front where most people who are gonna build, typically they don't wanna build a road and go through, a mile. I don't even know how long this is. It's over a mile. I think it's almost a mile, coming out a mile of public road, and then put the cluster in the back. Usually they want to do it in the front, and then if this was all wetlands, then it's ideal with the site to have the development in the front and then preserve the whole back end. But in this case, it's just opposite. I mean, other than Wheaton's Pond.
And we had an issue again with setbacks on zoning. If we make some kind of a road here, the existing house would be much too close.
That was
So
the other
we can't
issue,
really
yeah.
make the driveway into a road unless we creep way into these wetlands. We gotta stay 75 feet from that. That was another thing that we looked at, trying to do a cluster subdivision back here.
Try to weave around the house, but then that was when I was measuring as well, we were running into that wetland. So that's why it's like, how can we, be within it and work, in that sense.
The reality is you're
yeah.
trying to recoup some of your cost. We totally understand that. And it's probably the worst lot that we've, it's probably the worst lot we've ever seen, in all honesty.
So I do have a question. The map that's up on the screen right now, what are those other lots? Because I don't see that
Yeah.
in your
Those were like,
application.
yeah.
That's not a final plan that we submitted for review. That was one of the many alternates that we thought about and rejected.
Yeah.
So
Just
the reason-
wanted to
Single-
Clarify.
Like, there was different ideas, it's the same thing, the zoning allowed single family or 2-family, so it's like, could we do really nice single families back there for new homeowners and things like that, so, but again, it's one of those things where that size project, because I think it's 5 shared driveways that you can go off the public road, for 5 units, I think was.
Yeah, 5 dwellings off one shared
Off
driveway.
one shared driveway. But that would require the same thing, was where if you see on this one here, that's on the screen, it is already clipping into the wetlands on there. Plus just the significant cost to build a public road that's gonna meet town standard and everything like that, so.
Yep.
It makes it very difficult to even do that first plan to sidestep all the wetlands. But if you look on there, there is the original 2 duplexes that was part of the original plan, plus that third house on the north side of, I don't know if Jonathan, if you could zoom in to show that, but, and so that's where we said, well, you know, to us, even that one is very, or actually we'll wait for Jonathan to go there. You know, from a frontage standpoint, that house there that's being pointed at, I mean, you could see how tight that one was, and we're kind of saying, you know, technically it makes it, but, you know, that was, personally said, well, that's pretty much a bridge too far, because, you know, at that point, like the commission says, it's like, yeah, you're crowding everything in there. So that's where I was just like, you know, as the applicant just said, forget that. You know, we have enough land to do it on there, and, you know, where was the closest part to cross it, even, you know, coming around the back side of the house and coming there, you know, instead of just going, you know, perpendicular, how's the current plan. So, was looking at every way. I mean, the only other thing would be literally getting, which we haven't gone to the planning and zoning meeting yet, is would planning and zoning grant us a variance to create a plan that would make the, you know, that would satisfy and not,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
don't,
cause
so
more.
it's actually the zoning board of appeals that does
Zoning board.
variances, but I concur with John, I've never heard of it done for a subdivision. It's something you do with an existing lot of record if you can't quite make it work.
Yep.
I don't think they give out variances of any kind for
Yeah.
subdivisions.
And the reason I was talking or trying to highlight the map in regards to the cluster development, and we saw a lot of them in the early 2000s in Killingly. Planned residential development has become a little more popular, however, was recently removed from this zoning district. But cluster development would allow where you'd still have to meet your front setback, because anything that abuts the cluster development, those outer lines still have to meet the underlying zone setbacks. But you would start with a plan like this and show, at least on paper, a proposal that in theory would meet subdivision, regardless of actually getting an approval for it. Then that would set your total number of units. Then you could come back and say, okay, we have an area, you know, behind the existing house and maybe like a little bit off this one driveway, and we could cluster or try to cluster our development in there. That allows for much tighter lots. The minimum lot size is really steered by the health department in that sense. And in some cases, you know, shared septics, and you know, there's there's different ways of looking at some of those developments. And from a conservation and like the area back towards Wheaton's Pond, where it might be best for like development, like for views. I'm not sure if it's very scenic or not back there, but being that it's an area that is identified with having different species and stuff, that would probably be where I would suggest putting some conservation, also maybe with some of the wetlands areas and stuff. But that's a different application. That's
Yep.
not what we have before us.
This is the one we have.
But would be an area I've been, you know, I've tried to steer a lot of development teams towards that conservation cluster development, because I think it's a win-win in terms of approach. But I see what the applicant did. It's essentially a smaller bite, right? But it's, you know, a portion of, we'll call it phase one of maybe a larger plan.
Yeah, and in all
To get you started
transparency,
and
to get started, exactly. I mean, this
generate a little bit of income while you try to figure out what to do.
well, and to help pay for the. I mean, the biggest cost is going to be putting in the public road, and this would be something that would at least give a kickstart to help that out. You know, to start doing that, and that would be for the wetlands, in all transparency, that would be, for CJJ Adventure, would to continue later on. No sugar, full transparency and everything.
Another thing I wanna
Yeah.
note is that there really is a lot of garbage, like, it's just garbage, diapers, like, garbage. We wanna clean this up, but, it's just
It's part of the
getting there,
process,
you know?
as you're going through and
Right.
everything. Keep going back and
So
doing
given
things.
all of the, I want to say, conversations that we've had with you guys and the changes and improvements that you are trying to make here, have you considered doing just one dwelling now? Because I don't think we've seen that
That seems
on a
to be
plan.
what we've
Yeah.
been asking
We've
for
been kinda
continually.
Suggesting.
If we did a single dwelling, it would pretty much force us to sell the property at that point and sell it at a significant loss from because what I do, I work pretty much as a commercial mortgage loan officer, and as for transparency, a real estate agent as well. And the numbers, unfortunately, for single families and from the cost of building and everything, it would be a financial burden to do that and to give up the land and build it at a loss from the construction arm of as the applicant. And even doing a 2-family for it's at best case financially would be a break even and wouldn't allow to obtain financing in essence. All this development, same thing, is all bank financed and have to get that as to get approvals on it. And so that's what causes it where from a value standpoint and a cash flow standpoint will allow the lenders to actually extend the loan to us because we're showing, hey, we're not going into a doomed venture in essence. Conversely, that's why we brought up about single building, but then we run into, I made the mention of is the tail wagging the dog or the dog wagging the tail because we still have to go through planning and zoning.
Yep.
And we can say here tonight, oh yes, let's do a single building, but be a 4-family, and then have planning and zoning grant a variance, for that, or, vice versa. But it's just bouncing back and forth and everything. So I just look at it from, logically,
This is what you want.
well, I would say, it would
That's
be
why you
nice,
proposed
it would
it.
be nice, yeah, I mean, hey, from any developer, we all know it, if you can put 4 units or 8 units, any developer or any investor or whatever would say, yes, let's do that. But staying within, what's permitted for what we have, where can the envelope be pushed, as much as it can. Like if it was only single family and the applicant knew that, okay, you can only put single family here, then it's okay, well, we're coming in with a proposal for that if it makes sense. Otherwise, nobody would come, unless it's for primary residence for somebody to live at, then they would go to their bank and get a loan, and they don't care what they pay for it. It could be $10 or $1 million. So, so that's how kind of when I look at it, it's, this on paper and everything, and for what CJJ wants to do in the long term, makes the most sense and gives progress to do a couple of things. One is get the rest of this place cleaned up as we've done over the years. Because even the house, if you see the house, I don't know if the commission walked and saw kind of how much nicer the property was, especially with that house in the back of the 647 Putnam Pike is, compared to what it was. I have video, I have photos I can show the commission of what this place looked like, and the folks, unfortunately, that were inhabiting it, so you could see firsthand the mess that CJJ walked into to clean up the property, and in essence to do the right thing, knowing that we're going to have to bite the bullet, and we did for many years now, to get it to this point, to do the right thing. There's other, I won't name names, but there's other property owners in town say, oh, why don't you just bulldoze the wetlands? And commission's not gonna know, nobody's gonna know. Let a couple of years go by, they'll have no idea, then call the wetland, Joe Thoreau to come and inspect it. Nobody will be the wiser, because I wasn't at the property, none of the commission was at the property, but doing the right thing, even when nobody's looking, and showing that is showing your character as a person at the end of the day. And when you're doing it responsibly, because I wouldn't want, even from a building standpoint, I wouldn't want my own mother to live in a building or a site that wouldn't be something that I would have anybody else live in. And that's how I just look at it at the end of the day. And I know, I respect everybody, the whole commission. I know it is tough to balance everything in here. But that's why, at the same time, I welcome anything that the commission, any ideas, at least with the existing plan. That's the same thing with putting in the boulders on the front. I had thought at the last meeting it was just the front, or I'm sorry, I was thinking it was gonna be, let's see, on the silt fences and everything. That's why I was thinking, it's like, well, yeah, you could do the arborvitaes, but that's why I was like, well, if we're worried about encroachment and everything, especially the long time planning for this property, because we know as we're going into and cleaning up more, there's gonna be more ledge, there's gonna be more boulders, more rocks and stuff like that. Because there is anyways, on the western side or the southern side of the property, there is already walls from the neighbors abutters. So I was like, I know we're gonna run into a bunch. And it's like, if we set that at the edge, or even, come back a bit, I mean, on there, and just fill that in, I think it'll look more natural and, more appealing, but also too, nobody's gonna, at least to me, normally nobody's gonna come in with a tractor and start bulldozing. That's why we have these dry stone walls, because they're kind of nice permanent markers, and the average person's not gonna mess with them. But I mean, if there's anything else specifically that would make it easier, or some other ideas, it would be very much appreciated.
I appreciate the honesty, to be honest, but it's horrible. I mean, at least you're honest about it, and you recognize the position you're coming from, and we appreciate that too.
From
None of
both
you guys
sides.
want to lose your shirt, but it's horrible.
Yes, and I would recommend this. Given the feedback that you've heard tonight, you may want to consider withdrawing the application rather than face a denial, because I think that's where this is going.
And that'll give you some options
It'll
to,
give you some options to work with. Otherwise, you can't come back with a substantially similar plan right away.
Okay, so it'd be like a denial with prejudice, or
if it's,
without prejudice, or
So-
what's the typical?
So if you withdrew, you wouldn't be subject to a denial or anything, right? It's a
Okay.
non-action. It's a decision by you guys. What Rodney is speaking to is, if the commission were to deny it based off of, say, direct wetlands impacts, we kind of cover this on other applications. Typically, it's with or without prejudice. Sometimes it's stated on the record. It might say like, we encourage you to work, like you're close, but come back. That's typically like a without prejudice. But if we're looking at it as like, the two lots in that area in general, it could be looked at as with prejudice. And if that's the case, you usually wait a year between applications. Whereas, I think what the feedback from the commission it has been to try to explore some more of the options, but unfortunately because of the time frame, we're at the end. We're at the end.
yeah.
I know since we talked a little bit about the subdivision stuff too. Keep in mind there is difference between private drive, private road. So like, per the subdivision regulations, private drive is a max of 5 units, so that would include the existing home. So the proposal as submitted right now maxes out that private drive. Any future application would bring it up to a private road, and that would probably even widen it out more, add more stormwater, other things like that. So there's a significant lift for a future application if we go to private road. But in terms of potential options, cluster development, I think that it would be something to be explored, and happy to sit down and go through those regulations. Haven't had one of those in some time. I'd be remiss to say, I know not popular, 830G application, right? But that goes more to affordable housing.
Yep.
If the intention is to do a building or a series of buildings of some sort of development, whereas the zoning board of appeals is limited on their ability to grant variances. And 830G is a state statute that allows you to potentially address those in the interest of housing, right? However, 830G does not negate you from life, safety, and environmental impact. So you definitely still go to the Wetlands Commission, we still look at it, Health Department still looks at it, and you still have to meet all of those requirements. But it's a different type of thing, and then you're limited in terms of how you market it, how you sell it. It doesn't all have to be affordable. There's a couple different ways. It can be very complicated on that end. That's something that you would look to include an attorney, I think, on drafting an application with your expert. So, but I think does that answer your question in terms of like the with or without? So if you choose to make a withdrawal, right?
Because I don't see good
You
things
could
coming
you
from
could
the West.
resubmit as soon as next month, but I would suggest we look at it. Now, if you're withdrawing, just know you have the planning and zoning subdivision,
We have to
and
withdraw there too.
most likely in terms of time frame. So your application, I've told you guys that you unfortunately have been right behind some big applications.
Yeah,
And-
no,
yeah,
it's-
we're
I
sorry.
understand.
I
No,
can't-
I mean,
It's not easy
it's,
for anyone.
It's what it comes, it's timing.
And this is,
Um,
and I do, and like I said, I think we all appreciate that you're at least being honest with us, that you're trying not to lose your shirt on it.
Yeah,
I give you credit for saying it,
yeah.
but it's horrible.
Yeah, so
I don't, Daniel,
where we
it's not-
can't,
it's gotta be one of the worst you've had to deal with.
where we can't definitively say tonight, like in terms of the fees or anything like that, particularly for subdivisions, a little costlier
Yeah.
of an application. If you're looking to withdraw and stuff, it really has to come from the town manager, but we can ask them about refund or reapplying of the fees. We'd have to look to see what we've spent on legal fees
Yeah.
and all that
For review.
with it. But it has been done by previous town managers. Brian's I think he's been here a year now. I haven't had to ask him that yet, but.
Yeah. I had a question, so highly just speculative. No, hypothetically, if we had engineering redesign a plan, and let's say hypothetically we did a duplex on where we currently have the 2 duplexes, and we were to put a different property on the other side, like the original, let me. Forget what page you had it on. Put it on the opposite side of the driveway, over there, can it theoretically work, or from spacing wise and everything, maybe a single family or something like that, that's smaller on the other side, and then having, the two, have the combined of, one lot, for that duplex to meet setback requirements, for where that red dot was, on that side? Or
As soon
do we
as you
face
get,
the
as soon
same?
as you get one of the structures out of there, I feel better about it. It's still not great, but I feel better about it.
The right-hand side of the driveway, I mean, as depicted, it does have the benefit of no wetlands crossing,
There
right?
is no wetlands crossing on that
But
side.
you most likely would be
Which is
hard.
close.
You'd be a little harder on, like, I think there's no way in developing the front areas where your septic system's not gonna be within 100 feet. The mantis systems do well in wet environments, The engineer has submitted nitrogen counts in regards to that. The commission has looked at that before. As far as minimum buffers, it'd be nice to see that 25-foot buffer for no clearing, no anything, and then establishing that edge. But I don't want to speak for the commission.
No. And if, Jonathan, if you can zoom in to that section too, because there is a little bit of there is a marker on there for, if you go to the, to the right more. Yeah.
Go to another sheet.
Yeah, right there is fine. So there is that dug well. So I from communication with the old owner, that this was an original well that was for this site. So it's unclear, even though it is wet here at this time, if this is from just the failed well over here, but that would be pretty much where, just where the setbacks are and everything. It would be just past that pretty much. If you go a little bit, maybe cut off.
I can go to another sheet if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah. Because those two, I think that's where we did the test pits for that side, because we did a couple of test pits on the land already, and a little bit further back where.
Yeah, I think there was some test pits in this area.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's your 75-foot front setback here.
Yeah.
So like from a purely zoning standpoint, this is your developable, kind of area,
Yeah.
right?
It's very-
if it was part of its own lot. And then, in doing that, you might not have your full 250 feet of frontage here. Maybe you could.
It's 275.
Sorry, yeah, 275, yep. So, so you might not have your full frontage here, but you could dimensionally maybe make this a rear lot, in terms of, 160,000 square feet of land area versus 80,000 square feet. Now, if you're doing a cluster development, if it's part of a bigger application for a cluster development, you don't need that 80,000 square feet. But you have to show first a proposed plan and then another one. The proposed plan is what caps you on the total number of units.
Okay. Yep.
And then you show a cluster development. Now, the cluster, if you have a limited space, might not work for those total number of units, but there's some options under those regulations. It's a unique use. It's a special permitted use that is also a subdivision. So. Well, it's a subdivision, quite frankly. There's automatic public hearing. There's
Yeah.
all of that in regards to it. But the use resides within the zoning.
But right now, nothing is already decided on this, and that's why it's so important
Yeah.
to not just jump at that one. I can see where you want to recoup some costs, but we can't just jump. You've got to try to do it right, and there, as Jonathan said, there's more options than you think.
Right. So the question again is.
Would you like to withdraw?
Would you like to withdraw the application?
We can do a recess if you want to do a brief recess to discuss it. You don't.
Yeah,
If you guys
yeah,
wanna
I
talk
can't,
about
yeah, I don't want to speak out of turn, so, yeah, I mean, I think that would be
Do
good.
you want a 5-minute recess?
Yeah, I think that's.
I'd like a
Is there a
quick
motion?
point.
Yeah.
Motion for
Oh.
a 5-minute recess?
Never mind.
Oh,
I can do it after.
Okay.
I had one more question, but we'll do it after.
You sure?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
so,
ahead.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I was just gonna, again, touch back on the fact that you didn't choose to hold a public hearing on this
We
application.
typically don't.
If it has a significant activity,
We very
you do
rarely
have to hold a public hearing, right?
No.
No,
You don't.
we do not.
Yeah.
And we try not to because it gives us more give and take and an opportunity
There's
to
a
talk with you.
duality within the regulation and in the statute in terms of like what is deemed a significant activity. So there's two different ways of approaching that. A commission can look at it and say this is clearly a significant activity because it involves filling.
Yep.
And they might just internally or within their regulations say 1,000 cubic yards of fill. Right, and above is significant. This commission hasn't done that. The other way of looking at it is they could say let the public decide when it's a significant activity because when they receive an application, there's a small threshold to force public hearing.
Okay.
They have a small window to force public hearing, but it doesn't take a lot of signatures
Yep.
to
Yeah,
do that.
of course.
Then this is significant because the public has said it is significant. So
Something like the
the
other
prudent and
application you were
feasible.
waiting for. There was no way that the public was not going to
Yeah.
Right.
request a public hearing, but they don't seem to understand that in a public hearing, the public is actually more limited.
Yeah.
Not,
Yeah, they can be.
Yeah.
It's more. It's a
it's,
little,
it's gotta follow stricter guidelines, so it really
but the
takes away a lot of the give and take.
Okay.
being that, so the commission, there's two spots where we talk about alternatives, and I think this is mirrored by some of the statutory language when we talk about like significant activity.
Yeah.
If you have a significant activity and then there's a motion to approve, deny, or whatever,
Yeah.
but particularly for deny, they should state on the record the rationale.
Yes.
Why, right? Like it's set in the regulations, just a motion to deny is not appropriate. So there should be some rationale. If you have a regular, any day application in front of this commission, there's an earlier criteria, I believe in that section 10 of our local regulations that says alternatives should be discussed. It doesn't mean that it was a significant activity, but
Yeah.
the alternatives, do they exist, right? And historically, the commission has always tried to do it this way, right, without the public hearing, because it's a little freer and less regimented in time. But that's where it comes from. I know I've heard from some, like if you want to talk about prudent and feasible, you should always do a public hearing. I've heard attorneys
Sure.
say that.
Yeah.
I've heard the opposite opinion.
Yeah,
It's
of
land
course.
use, so there's always,
Yeah.
people on both sides of the fence, for sure.
But if you look at our past history, we very, very rarely hold a public hearing.
Okay.
There has been one in the 9 years I've been here.
And you've been in the midst of it.
and
Yeah,
we're about to have the second.
That was fun.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll make a motion again.
Okay.
Motion for a 5-minute recess.
Second.
Perfect.
All in
Thank you.
favor?
Aye.
Don't run away, Rainey.
Let me
I'm here. I was just about to say aye.
let me just make sure we're Yep.
To resume?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're on. All right, we'll leave it to you guys. What do
Just,
you guys think?
Turn your mic on. Get a chance. Thank you.
So yeah, I think what we'll do, is just withdraw the application tonight
Because then you can work on it
and
right
work
away.
on it and
Right away.
come back.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think that's a very good idea.
yeah. So we'll do that and, we'll, depending on how fast Daniel can work.
See you next month.
Yeah, see you next month.
I didn't
Yes.
say that.
Yeah. So crack the whip
I
on
also do
Daniel.
want to apologize to an extent because, no, we haven't been happy with it, but with everything else that was going on, we probably did not say it as clearly as we should have to you. I think that
I'm sure it's been a very long year.
it's been horrible.
Yeah, we try to give more feedback, and that's, you know.
Understood. Understood. No, you guys had bigger fish to fry, which is
But no, you know,
perfectly
no, because,
understandable.
you know what? It's just as important.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
It's just as
heard
important to you
that.
guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, but they might be on, oh no, they will be after them on the agenda because,
He will be, yeah.
Just generically speaking, we have some big applications that are scheduled for stuff in next month. So just keep that in mind as you resubmit. I
As I said,
understand
we
you
do
guys might be
apologize.
eager to get on and stuff, but.
Might be good to hold off another month
Well,
or two, yeah.
the
I hear
Wetlands
that.
Commission, and we're very thankful to the Wetlands Commission, we were able to have this special meeting tonight. But if we continue to see this application pattern between wetlands and planning and zoning, it might be more likely for a period of time to doing 2 meetings a month at least. There's no limit really, as long as we advertise them appropriately and everything. So if,
You know, that
Separate
might
them
make
out
sense.
between
Yeah,
the big projects and.
well,
the
like if
smaller
we have
projects.
public hearings, a public hearing, and then
Yeah.
some of the other stuff.
Yeah.
And that way we can, work through. We try to always have citizens' participation. Sometimes that does add to the time, though.
Yeah.
I don't think
Some late
we
nights.
have it in our rules currently, like a hard limit. Planning and zoning has a hard limit on time. They can choose to extend it. So those are things, we might have to do at some point but that's up to the commission. So,
it's
but
probably better than cheating people out of their
Yes.
due process.
yeah.
Yep, well, we won't take up any more of your time this evening. We're so appreciative that you guys were willing to come out here just to speak
Just
with
for
us.
us, yeah.
We've taken up an hour of your time. So again, we're just really thankful that you took the time to speak with us. I
And
don't
thank
think,
you for letting Norm in and out.
yeah, I don't think most towns would do that. I'm gonna ask the first selectman to double your salary.
Oh,
There you
excellent.
go.
They could quadruple it and it'd be
Or
the same.
quadruple it, yeah, why not?
And it would be the same.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
guys.
Have a
everybody.
good evening, guys, thank you so much.
Night.
Okay, actually, we can have a staff report. Jonathan, anything else?
I don't have much, if anything at all. I just wanted to thank you guys for, kind of last minute, as we looked at, the time frame, being able to meet here tonight and join. We had members who were, in other states who were offering to come if virtually, to make quorum. So I just want to thank you guys for that. I did, speaking of town council liaison, I spoke with Mr. Gundowski earlier today. I kind of gave him the night off. So don't blame him for not being present tonight. I know he has a meeting tomorrow night, but we reviewed the packet together, went through all the stuff, and he decided to work on some other items tonight, which I thought was totally fine.
Actually, would it make sense? I think we can still talk a little bit about that idea of a second meeting. It probably makes sense with the pressure that's coming down the road. What do you guys think? Or would it just repeat itself with the same thing over and over with the,
So our next meeting's on September 14th because of the holiday.
Yep.
We're going to have an okay agenda in terms of volume of stuff. There's a few things. Who knows what we get for new applications between then and now. But planning and zoning then's on the 21st, the next Monday. So if you look to have one or schedule one, I think we have to have that conversation on the 14th. You guys aren't capped by a hard limit on time for your meetings. Not that any of you want to be here till 2 in the morning, right? But there is just a vote, I think at 10 o'clock, you vote
Yep.
to extend. But you have the option if for some reason. Now, if it's new business and it was received, in our office in time, and for some reason you can't get to it, it's implicitly received.
Right.
But as far as, other items, when we start getting into it, I think I'll try to be a little more a forefront with the time frame in particular, to make sure we all understand, what our limits are. I got some feedback from our attorney on that, again, kind of speaking to the previous application. It puts at risk generally the applicant in their application if we go beyond the time frame, if they were to have gotten an approval from an aggrieved party. Whereas on the alternate end, if we were to have found against an application and we were beyond the time frame, an applicant would have the ability to go to Connecticut Deep and argue that we didn't render our decision, and there's a risk of loss of jurisdiction. I'm not sure if the state's ever actually done that, but I don't want to find out either. So, I think we just have
So
to.
that's what could have happened this evening.
Yep. So that's where we don't want to do that. So ultimately, I think just being a little more careful on the timeframes and making sure if we need it, we're going to have a special meeting. Since COVID, we have a lot of options on meetings. We don't have to physically be in this room. We can do it virtual if you guys want to do it virtual. We can have hybrid. Commission members are always allowed to join the meeting remotely. There's
Because
no.
I'm not going to come back from Maine in October. I remember when we were doing Killingly Commons, I did. But that's before I was 70 years old and didn't care if I drove down here from Maine,
Yep.
fed animals, and went back in the middle of the night.
Yep. So
You know what I
so
mean?
if it's a, we also have changed since
You're
COVID from.
quite capable, more than capable.
We're not a 7-member board anymore. So we're only a 5-member board. So the ability to have quorum is a
only
little
need three.
easier.
Yep.
But just know if you miss a meeting and
have
you want to
homework.
come, you have homework. If you want to come back, you
Serious
should
homework.
watch these videos, read the minutes,
I'm thinking it's going to
review
be easier
the
to join
materials.
remotely, but it's stupid to run a meeting remotely. That's why you would.
Yeah, you might
do that.
pass it off if you're remote,
Oh, yeah.
but the, and then state on the record that you have reviewed everything before
Yeah.
rejoining the commission on that
But if you
particular
can,
item.
it's easier to be
Yes.
remote than, because it's a lot of work to go back through all of it.
Yes, it is.
Yep. But that's all I have for you tonight.
All right, do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Randy, we'll see you the next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye now.